did you decide to become a politician, and what brought you into this career?
You would think that after a year of being on the campaign trail that I nailed this question down, but I still haven't. So the question was, how did you decide to be a politician? I didn't. And I didn't decide to be a politician. I wasn't one of those 8-year-old looking up to their mama and saying, I'm gonna grow up to be a politician one day. I really didn't. So I represent that 50% of the populations that are either disenchanted, disengaged, or underexposed to politics in general. And it's not, part of it is ignorance, part of it is really underexposure. So I grew up in that family that was just really busy making a living every day, and so I didn't get a chance to ask those political questions as I was growing up. But as I started working, it became evident that some of the things that I remember growing up with was not what I was seeing today. I was very sick when I was 16. I had something quite similar to leukemia, so I was treated at BC Children's Hospital. And so there was the healthcare that I remembered in the 90s. And then as I was looking at some of my colleagues working in the healthcare sector here, the stories that I was hearing about the workplace situation and the funding cuts and so on and so forth, there was such a contrast. And then there was the tuition that I paid when I was at UBC, which was about $2,000 per year. And then when I talk to my students today, there's a tuition that they're paying. So at some point I was like, okay, what's going on? This is not the Canada that I sort of remember. So I thought I should ask those questions, and I thought, what better way to get those answers from my own politicians? So I got up one day and decided to email the Prime Minister, the Premier, and the Mayor. I knew that much about the 3 levels of government. So, and I had a great chat with the Mayor, and then that really opened my eyes to some of the issues that we are all affected by, and that's how I got started in the process. And I'll leave it at that.
So the question about how, I think I share, Jane's experience, not so much a decision as a journey. So I was an immigrant. I grew up in South Africa. My parents decided when I was just finishing grade 2, they were distressed at what was happening with the apartheid system, and they decided to bring our family to North America. So my mother then went into architecture school as the only woman architect student at the time. So it turns out I later realized that there is a little bit of a pioneer gene in our family. I went to SFU, built a reforestation and ecological restoration company with my husband, which today has about 1,300 employees. So I have a lot of experience in creating something in the business and environmental crossroads industry. And at a certain point, it just seemed like what I needed to do next was to contribute my interest in fiscal responsibility and environment in public life. So I ran for office provincially, and as Priya said, I served as environment minister for almost 3 years. I recently concluded a very interesting adventure, which was being a candidate in the leadership race for the Liberal Party of Canada, and had 4 key platform items that I launched my campaign on, which I might talk about later if it's relevant to one of the questions. But I will say that one of them was about women's equality in corporate leadership roles and in politics.
And thank you. Just thank you for that. Yes.
It was great fun.
Very well. The case was very well made.
Yeah, thank you very much. So yeah, life drew me into politics.
Awesome. I just wanted to say what a great honor it is to sit on this panel with 2 ladies that I really admire, Jane and Joyce. And I think that we are all actually a panel of immigrants. My family immigrated to Canada in the 60s when I was 2, and immigrated from Scotland, and I didn't actually become a Canadian citizen until 2007. My husband was city manager of Port Moody for 11 years. I was surrounded by politicians, And I still believed that, why should I vote? My vote doesn't matter. Politics, it's a little bit corrupt. And I didn't really get the difference that politics makes in our everyday life. And when I did, when I really wanted to see a different future for my kids, for our collective children, that's when I thought, gosh darn it, I need to become a citizen because I need to exercise my democratic right, what so many people are fighting for in other countries. And it's a privilege to vote. So I went to Ottawa and I met with the leaders, Prime Minister Harper, Stéphane Dion, this is back in 2008, and the late Jack Layton. And then I went and came back to Port Moody and I met with riding association presidents, I met with our local MPs and MLAs and had different conversations with Port Moody councillors about what mattered to them, and I thought, wow. And pretty soon there was another federal election, and I thought, when's that great candidate going to step up to the plate because they'll have my vote? And that person didn't appear. And while I think there's no political party that might represent your values 100%, I think that you can find a pretty good fit in what is in existence. So I threw my hat into that proverbial ring with incredible fear. Barack Obama says it's not the fear of losing in a campaign, it's actually the fear of utter and complete humiliation. And you're thinking about, oh my, what are my skeletons? You're checking in with family, your brother that you haven't spoken to in 5 years. Everything okay between us? Yeah, okay. Mom, was there anything I did to disappoint you? And just having those conversations, checking with your kids, right, who you're starting to run in a campaign and you're never available. But it was the most extraordinary experience of my life. It is the way in which you get really connected to people on such an intimate level. And you learn what matters, not just to you, but we have so many collective values when you consider things like peak water and food security and our environment and homelessness and all of those things that impact our daily lives. And I think that, once you get past that fear of putting yourself out there, it's all about making a difference. I didn't win in 2008, but I was so proud of what we accomplished. Shoestring budget, small group of dedicated volunteers. And for me, my first vote that I ever cast in Canada in over 4 decades was a vote for myself, which was kind of interesting. I'd never participated on a campaign, but wow, if you put yourself out there, I promise you, it is the best thing that you ever do. And whether you win or